Nearly 4,800 elected MPs and MLAs will vote on Monday, that is July 18, to elect the 15th President of India. National Democratic Alliance, that is NDA candidate Draupadi Murmu, who last served as Jharkhand governor, seems to have a clear edge over opposition Yashwant Sinha, as over 60% votes are expected to be cast in her favor. The polling will take place in Parliament House and state legislative assemblies, for which ballot boxes have already reached their destination. The counting of votes will take place at Parliament House on July 21st, and the next president will take oath on July 25. Himanshuji, please tell us about President's poll preparation and decode tomorrow's election for our listeners.
Well, it's a well-concluded season that has been going on for the past 2 weeks and more, that Mrs. Murmu, the NDA candidate, will be the next president of India. It's almost a foregone conclusion, and therefore, one after another, since major parties are now supporting her, so the decision of the NDA well thought out and taken into account with the background, while keeping in mind that the lady has been coming from a very poor background, the social background, the kind of a struggle she did for her education in Odisha, the kind of politics she did, and even as governor of Jharkhand, the kind of decisions she took. So that was all in her favor. And then the top leadership of the NDA and the BJP, the way they chose a candidate. So it was a foregone conclusion that she is going to be the next president of India. And keeping in mind also the trend that the NDA has been picking up the candidates one after another. Earlier, President Kovind was elected as the president when he was chosen as the NDA candidate, and now Mrs. Murmu. So this whole procedure of voting tomorrow or day after tomorrow in the Rashtrapati Niwas, it's a question of how many votes he is going to get. And with the last, except for this Aam Aadmi Party, who has declared the party has declared its support for the opposition candidate, we find that most of the parties which were once upon a time with the opposition group have now shifted to the support of the NDA. And most of the political aware citizens of India know the voters, that's the members of the Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha, the Legislative Assembly, the Legislative Council, even in the different states of India. They all know that to whom they are going to vote. So the call of the opposition candidates to vote according to the consent itself reflects that the candidate is not winning.
That's right. We'll talk about opposition candidate in a bit, but first about NDA's nominee. You see, there were few names that were said to be doing the rounds for the president poll. What do you think NDA picked former Jharkhand governor? What was the reason? And here I would like to mention, if she wins, though number seems to be in her favor, if she wins, she is going to be the first Dalit woman president of the country. So has her candidature got something to do with caste politics? These two questions.
See, not Dalit, but you can say tribe, the first tribal candidate, the first tribal president of Republic, number one. Number two, the only criteria was the last time a Dalit candidate was chosen by the NDA to be the president of India. So this time, since no one has been ever a tribal president, and that too a woman tribal president, this was something, the novelty. And the leadership of the BJP in particular, the way they choose the candidates very carefully, which has a symbolic value for the whole of the country as well as for the downtrodden, the subalterns, because these kind of personalities who are going to occupy the constitutional post inspire a lot many of the poor subaltern citizens who have been on the margin. So if Mrs. Murmu could do it as the tribal president of the country, so could many others be coming from the poor background. And in the last 7-8 years, if you notice that a lot many of the tribal people or the marginalized sections of the country have been getting Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan. Can we imagine, or had we imagined that 8 years ago such kind of people working in different parts of India quietly, unknowingly could come to the Republic in Delhi, come to the President's office and could be vested with Padma Shri? Earlier, it were the economic, political, educational elite who were bestowed with the Padma Shri and the Padma Bhushan. Now it's the poor. So that's a qualitative change in the vision, in the thinking of the BJP leadership. And the choice of Mrs. Murmu reflects that vision for this republic.
Let me briefly tell our listener as to how a president is elected before we go further. The Electoral College, which elects the president through the system of proportional representation, comprises elected MPs and members of state legislative assemblies. Nominated MPs and MLAs and members of legislative councils are not entitled to vote in this election. The value of vote of a member of parliament has gone down to 700 from 708 in this presidential poll due to the absence of a legislative assembly in Jammu and Kashmir. Similarly, in states, the value of vote of each MLA varies in different states. In Uttar Pradesh, the value of vote of each MLA stands at 208, followed by 176 in Jharkhand and Tamil Nadu. In Maharashtra, it is 175. In Sikkim, the value of vote per MLA is 7, while it is 9 in Nagaland and 8 in Mizoram. Many people have question on their mind as to why opposition parties chose Sinha. There were a few names that were being talked about. Opposition camp had approached Gopal Krishna Gandhi, who is grandson of Mahatma Gandhi and a former governor of West Bengal. Then they also approached NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar and National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah to contest the post. They all declined. So why Sinha?
See, there was no alternative. He was the candidate of TMC. Recently, he had joined TMC. He kept on changing the parties in the past 1 to 2, 3 years, leaving the BJP, then joining some other parties, then joining TMC, etc. And the TMC had suggested there were a couple of names, you have already said that, not to repeat again. They could easily calculate, they are veterans, they could easily calculate that they are going to lose. Kind of brute majority that the NDA alliance enjoys the number. It's not a BJP dominant party only, but the way the BJP has been functioning at the national level, making alliances, not only in the parliament and in the central government, but even at different state levels, the way they co-opt the views of the opposition, the way they adapt to the changing situation. So they have acquired an aura, a dominance that once upon a time Congress had, with the slipping of the Congress grip over the politics, and that's being replaced by the BJP. The leaders of the opposition, they could easily sense, they could easily view that once they declare their candidature, they are going to lose. Since Mr. Sinha was chosen by the TMC leader, so he was bound to contest. He could not have said no, despite knowing that he is going to lose the election. But that's his fate. And that's the irony, that the man who was once upon a time a cabinet minister was in the party, his son was in the ministry, is now on the margin.
Right. The National Democratic Alliance nominee now has over 6.67 lakh votes after the support of various regional parties out of a total of 10,86,431 votes. So all eyes will be on tomorrow's election and results will be declared on July 21st. Himanshu ji, thank you so much for talking to us on tomorrow's president's election.
Thank you.